I love milkshakes. They're creamy, full of calcium, and if rumours led to believe, they'll bring out all the boys to your yard. But if there's one thing you might have not thought about, it's the US military applications. That's right, the humble milkshake was once considered as one of the principal ways to invade a country, and perhaps even be the secret weapon to take out the Nazis on D-Day with minimal casualties. Now, I've led you down the garden path here because I'm not actually talking about the actual milk part of the milkshakes. Sorry, cows. Rather, I'm actually talking about the shake, or the straw specifically. In 1943, an idea was floated around the Allied military complex that instead of sucking up milk the straw, what if we sucked men? Now, ignore the phrasing here, but I mean, what if we sucked men up the pipe, 2 at a time, from a ship to the shore? You could quickly bring soldiers to the battlefront to avoid dangerous landings, terrible weather, and enemy fire. This is perhaps one of the most insane military ideas I've ever heard of, and something that we just have to talk about. Men in pipes. This insane idea comes from a literal mad scientist. Geoffrey Pyke was a British inventor who came up with screw tanks, turning icebergs into aircraft carriers, and yes, sucking men up pipes. He is described as the type of man who would suddenly stumble upon a warp drive engine whilst examining an old transistor radio in his garden shed. A genius, but also super duper eccentric. And he also didn't shower. The British seemed to recognise his brilliance and put him hard at work at various brain teasers for the war effort against the Nazis during World War II, one of which was solving many of the issues invading France. And you see, there was a big problem with landing on French Normandy. If you're going to invade a country, you're going to need to drop off much more than just a few Navy SEALs. You're going to need a dock to unload food, jeeps, ammo, medical supplies, and tanks. And sometimes a coast doesn't have much in the way, but a few key ports that the enemy can simply fortify and hold on to. That means your big, fat French invasion is going nowhere fast. In late 1943, Pike actually submitted to the British government a nearly 50-page memorandum elucidating his solution to the challenge of unloading materials without having proper port facilities or access roads. This was a predicament that was prevalent throughout the Pacific Theatre and a pivotal decision to why the Allies needed to invade in Normandy, considering the absence of a vast harbour infrastructure and a 24-foot tide. And the idea was simple. Boats would be refueled by attaching a fuel pipe from a tanker, which they would use suction to bring the fuel from one vessel to another. So why not move other items than fuel? Pike proposed employing these same pipes, used for transportation of fuel from ship to shore, to move sealed containers accommodating various small-size objects. He recommended using 4 or 6-inch pipes for smaller equipment, whilst larger objects could be conveyed through 2-foot pipes, which were seriously wider. Moreover, he suggested extending these pipes inland as necessary. These pipes didn't actually have a range requirement, and they didn't need to go from ship to shore, but could practically move with the front line from the sea deep into occupied France. Imagine having a pipe from a supply ship bringing ammo, medical supplies, and even still hot food to the front line. That would be a game changer. Pike's concept bore resemblance to mechanisms such as cleaning brushes that were propelled through pipes by fluid pressure, and modern pipeline pigs that are used for cleaning and telemetry. So it was a pretty sound concept. The British government cautiously endorsed the idea, emphasizing that they really needed to do a thorough investigation, and got hard to work figuring out all the logistics of men and pipes. Subsequently, and seemingly enthused by the response, Pike tentatively proposed extending his concept of power-driven rivers to the transportation of personnel, necessitating at least a 2-foot diameter of pipes operating at a high pressure. He outlined preliminary ideas for supplying passengers with oxygen and suggested alleviating claustrophobia through paired travel 2 at a time and judicious use of drugs. That's right, giving the soldiers drugs as they would travel a few kilometers in high pressure pipes under the sea to calm them down because they would be absolutely terrified. And the fact that he would recommend that they go 2 by 2 to ensure that they had a buddy. You know, just in case you're stuck under the sea in a pipe.
Crosstown Express?
Pike believed that the experience of traveling in such pipes would be less daunting and quicker to adapt to compared to parachute jumping or enduring bombing raids. In fact, he believed that the pipes could be underwater or set underground to prevent damage between the ships and the front line. He envisioned this system as versatile means of transporting people not only from ship to shore, but also between islands, across swamps, over mountains, and through terrains where conventional transportation was challenging. For him, it might have not even stopped there, with the transport extended beyond Normandy to the Pacific, and perhaps even to start civilian use. Would you want to travel by pipe? Let me know down in the comments. However, this idea was not pursued further. Pike overlooked the impracticality of constructing these pipelines without prior road construction and the vulnerability of the pipelines themselves from a military standpoint. Imagine if a squad got stuck in the pipe under the sea. I'm pretty sure that's nightmare fuel for me that I dream about constantly. The practical issues of the Normandy landings were then resolved by Royal Navy researchers who devised solutions such as floating concrete pontoons and platforms that allowed trucks to just pretty much roll off the boats and drive to shore. No pipes needed. Pike would continue his flow of ideas to make a better world. He came up with one suggestion of solving the energy-starved post-war Europe with a propelled railway wagons by human muscle power, employing 20 to 30 men on bicycle machines to move this train along. He reasoned that the energy in a pound of sugar was the same about the energy in a pound of coal. And while Europe had plenty of sugar and unemployed people, there was a shortage of coal and oil. He recognized that such a use of human muscle power was in some ways distasteful, but he could not see the logic of the arguments about calories and coal that were unlikely to be sufficiently persuasive. Unfortunately, this idea was also not taken up, and it seemed his grand experiments of putting people in places that they shouldn't be came to an abrupt end. He unfortunately would take his own life a few years later, and we can only imagine what could have happened had the British government thrown him a bone or two. Thanks for watching, and I hope after this video, you go and get a nice delicious milkshake.